If you've reached a point where your job is no longer fulfilling you and you're coming home at the end of the day annoyed and tired and fed up, and you get to the end of the month and you're struggling to make ends meet, well, I've got something for you. I've compiled a list of the best business ideas to start for beginners, and all of which you can start for less than £200. There are a few things which I would bear in mind though when you're starting a new venture, and those are 3 things which are: make sure that when you start a new business or side hustle that it's doing something which you're passionate about, because when the going gets tough, that passion's going to carry you through. Initially, your business won't make huge amounts of money, so ideally you don't want to do it necessarily for the money. What you want to do is put your efforts into learning about business, mastering your craft, and being able to get out there and sell and market and get clients, because that's the thing which is going to stand you in the best stead in the long run. And the easiest way to do that is if it's something which you really care deeply about and you're passionate about, because that will carry you through the tough times. The second thing is to make sure you're doing it for the types of clients which you love working for, because again, you can be really passionate about something, but if you can't find clients you like, again, that's going to really grate after a while. And finally, ideally, you also want to make sure that you're good at the thing and that it can make you a bit of money, because again, if you can't make money from it, if you're not particularly good at it, you're going to struggle to market and sell it in the long term. So we want something ideally you're passionate about, that you love working with the people that you get to work with, that you can make a little bit of money from it, and you're also very good at it. The idea behind a majority of these ideas is that you can start them from home, and they can either be a side hustle or part-time, and generally they all cost very little to get started in the first place, so you don't have to have a fear about quitting your note and handing in your notice immediately. You can start these on a part-time basis, and then gradually, as you see that it starts to grow and become more successful, you can make that transition across into it being a full-time gig and an actual real business that's making you money. So the first idea I've got for you is for people who absolutely love animals. The business I'd recommend that you do is a pet sitting or dog walking business. You can earn £15 to £30 an hour doing this work. You can do this around your typical working day as well, and at weekends, because if people are going away for trips or holidays or things like that, then, and they have dogs or cats or things that you can then look after, it's a really simple business, and you don't really need any qualifications for it. You just need to have a love of animals and to be slightly organized so that you remember when to feed the animals, make sure that you lock up the house when you leave it, make sure you keep things clean and tidy, and I'm sure you'll find lots of great dog owners, cat owners who would be really grateful to have you there as an assistant. Also, these businesses are really easy to market because you can jump into local Facebook groups for your village or town that you live in and just put your name out there and say that I'm doing dog walking and pet sitting services, and if anybody would like those services, then please get in touch. So you don't even need to spend any money on marketing. In fact, the one thing which I maybe would recommend spending some money on, if you find that you do start to like it, I'd get a couple of branded hoodies made up or some coats, and then wherever you go, make sure you're wearing your branded clothing, because that means that people down the supermarket or in the petrol station, or when you go out and about, they'll see your branding and your logo. More than likely, they've probably got a pet, and they'll come up to you and say, oh, this is a service which I need. So you become a walking billboard for your business. The next business I would consider would be something like a car detailing or car cleaning service. Pretty much these days, most driveways that you walk past will have 2 or more cars parked on the drive. So what I would do is I would go out and I would buy a bucket and sponge, some detailing equipment, shampoo and things like that. Maybe your own hose reel. Again, a lot of homeowners will already have these themselves, so you can also knock on doors and just say, hey, I'm starting up a car cleaning business. Would it be okay if I cleaned your cars? And probably again, you could get anywhere between £20 and £40 an hour for doing car detailing, car washing services. And they might say, well, where's your bucket? And you say, well, actually, I'm just starting up. Would you mind if I borrowed yours? And that's okay. Don't be too proud to go and knock on doors and ask to people, borrow people's equipment, because ideally that's a really lean way to start up the business. And you don't want to go and spend loads of money starting up a business and then to find you don't like it, having spent all of this money on all of the various bits of equipment. So if you can, if it's a business where you can borrow their kit, even better, because it means you're doing it with little or no cost to yourself, very little risk. And as we know, pretty much every home out there has got 1 or 2 cars parked on the driveway. It's just a matter of going around your local neighborhood, knocking on the door and saying, hey, I'm starting a car washing business. Is that something which you might need? Now, some people feel very awkward about going and knocking on doors cold, but actually it's really not that bad. I've had to do it in businesses in the past. If you're too worried worried about knocking on doors, you could always have some flyers printed off and then go around your local neighborhood and push those flyers through the local letterbox, put your mobile number on there, and I'm sure you'll get a few messages. And likewise, same as the previous idea, jump into Facebook groups and mention this as a service you want to start offering. And again, it's low cost. You can get out there and start doing it pretty much tomorrow if you wanted to. Obviously in UK, the weather's a bit rubbish over the winter, so maybe now's not the best time to get into it, but equally, it's a time when the roads are at their muckiest, so this is a really great time to launch a business like this. The next business idea I've got for you would be a lawn care or garden cleaning services business. Now again, this is pretty simple. Most people like to mow their own lawn with their own lawnmower, so what you could do again is knock on doors. You could get some branded t-shirts and a gilet made up, in nice green colours with a lawn care logo on it and maybe a telephone number or something like that. So again, you're a walking advertisement for your business. But again, around this time of year, a lot of people need garden clearance and various things like that. Also doing a bit of maintenance on the lawn before we go into the autumn. And again, there's big demand for people doing lawn care services in the spring and summer. So it depends on what the season is that you're in. But there's lots of people out there who are either busy working, maybe they're elderly, maybe they just don't like, gardening. They like sitting in their garden with a pina colada, but they don't actually like the act of gardening. That again, they'll appreciate your services. And I see it in my local Facebook group all the time, people looking for local gardeners and people to come out and trim hedges, mow their lawns, help out with weeding and things like that. It's very low cost. You just need some gloves, some shears, maybe some snips or something like that, some bags to put all of the trimmings and things like that in it. And a lot of people again have brown bins, so green waste bins, which you can put all of the waste into and take it away. You don't necessarily have to take it away or take it to the tip yourself. But again, it's just a really simple business that you can get out there and doing it at weekends to fit around your work. Business idea number 4 I've got for you is social media management. Now, this is quite a big thing. There are 6 million registered businesses here in the UK, and I'm sure there's like gazillions of businesses spread all around the globe. Many of those small businesses are run by just one person, and a lot of the time they're spending a majority of the time doing marketing and various things like that. And it's more than likely, like me, I just want to spend time coaching business owners. I don't necessarily want to spend all of my days doing marketing on Twitter and LinkedIn and various other social platforms. So if I had somebody who could manage that for me, and in fact I do, I've got this amazing guy called Tate who runs my blog and does some of my socials for me. It just takes a massive weight off of my hands for a task which I just don't really have a huge amount of interest to do. Love making videos and things like that, but posting on social, nah, not for me. So if you get out there and start out a social media agency, and literally this is zero cost. If you've already got a laptop or a phone, this is a business you can start from scratch immediately. And the only thing I'd probably recommend you do spend a bit of money on would be going out into your local community, finding some business networking meetings, paying for those typically, and meet some local business owners and tell them what you can do. Again, if you're in the younger generations, I'm 42, I'm getting a bit of a dinosaur when it comes to social media. But a lot of the younger generations understand it's a heck of a lot better than some of the older generations. So if you're in your early 20s, this is probably definitely a business for you, because you've got the march on many of the millennials now who are starting to get into the older generations and haven't grown up necessarily with social media. So you can dive straight in and start earning money from doing social media for other people. Next up would be a virtual assistant. Again, it's not just social media, but there's lots of other tasks which business owners need help with on a regular basis. So from email management to diary management to booking onto things like podcasts, there's tons of different things which happen within small businesses which they need help with on a regular basis. And as a VA, you can earn anywhere between $10 an hour upwards of $50 to even $100 an hour, especially if you niche into a specific area. So something like a podcast concierge service is still a VA service, but it's very niche. So if you did podcasts concierging for business coaches, that's a really valuable service, because I know that if I get onto podcasts, then that helps to raise my profile, and generally I get a lot of clients through the podcast which I've guested on. One in particular, you might want to check it out. It was an interview with Ali Abdal. Last year that went live and it generated 3,000 leads for my business. So as a VA, if you can deliver a service like that to people like me, that is incredibly valuable, and people will pay considerably more for a service like that. Next up, we got graphic design. So if you have a design flair, you like using things like Photoshop and Illustrator to design logos, to design patterns and various things like that, if you're very creative, graphic design is a really great industry to get into. There's loads of marketplaces out there like Fiverr and Dribbble and Behance and various other platforms where you can list yourself as a graphic designer and create a portfolio of designs which you've made. And it's very easy to get out there and find clients, because there are, again, business owners like me who need things like books designing, lead magnets designing, graphic graphics for websites and blogs and various things like that and social media. So if you're in any way creative, then graphic design might be something which you could take on. My 7th idea for a business would be blogging. Now, most of you will be thinking, well, how do you make money out of blogs? There's these things called sponsorships and affiliates and various other ways that you can actually sell advertising space on your blog. Google AdSense is another way. So if you can if you're creative around your writing and you have a niche topic, you can set up a website with a blog on it and then start to write and put articles out there. And if Google picks it up and you start to get some traffic from it, you can then monetize it using those ways which I mentioned in terms of sponsorships, affiliates, advertising space and whatnot. It might surprise you actually. So whilst the bulk of my income is generated through the business coaching which I do with clients and my associate coaching roles, actually my blog now has started to get to a point whereby it's producing about £6,000 to £8,000 per month, which still boggles my mind even, despite the fact we're actually doing it and making some money from it. So blogging, it does take time though. That's the only challenge with blogging. So it's something which you can work around your office hours and gradually build up over time, writing about something which you're interested in. And then eventually you'll be able to start selling some advertising space, sponsorships, and putting affiliate links on there and whatnot. But it is a really great business that you can work at home. You don't need any clients for it, so you don't need to be out there doing marketing and sales and various things like that. It's just a matter of being consistent with the content that you're writing and making sure you're publishing with some degree of frequency in a way that Google and various other search engines like, and then think about monetizing it a bit further down the road once you've built up some traffic. Alongside that, you could also set up a YouTube channel. So while I don't make any money directly from YouTube itself, my channel is quite a good conduit in terms of bringing leads into my coaching practice, which means that ultimately I do get some clients through my YouTube channel. Now, there's plenty of ways that, again, you can actually monetize YouTube. You can do it through AdSense, so selling advertising through YouTube once you become monetized, but you can also sell things like courses and coaching, consulting gigs on there. You can sell, again, sponsorships and get affiliate links put on there if you're reviewing products, for example. Again, it requires consistency. Some people throw up a few videos and then they get millions of views. Good for them, but that's not many. But again, my good friend Ali Abdal once said that if you post regularly once or twice a week for over 2 years, it's more than likely going to swing the odds in your favor that you're going to have some success with it. So YouTube, again, slow burn, but again, it's something which you can do at home. You can talk about things which you're really passionate about. You don't need to do any marketing or sales necessarily, but again, there are some tougher parts around where you might need to learn about how to get a camera set up and lighting and audio and various things like that. But one of the benefits is you can literally just pick up your phone and start making videos just in the early days, just to get comfortable actually speaking to a camera. And it just gets the ball rolling with something like a YouTube channel. But you don't need much resources for that. And you certainly don't need to put yourself out and about doing sales and marketing. Next up, if you have got a voice for radio, then you might want to think about becoming a voiceover artist or narrating audiobooks. So I discovered through publishing my own books that there is this wonderful platform which Amazon bought a few years back. It's called acx.com. And ACX is effectively a marketplace between authors and voiceover or audiobook narration artists. And the idea behind it is essentially that you can get paid for reading somebody else's book. Now, the only thing which I would recommend you spend a bit of money on is making sure that you've got a good quality microphone. The mic which I would recommend, which I'm using right now, is called a Rode Podcaster. This is the Mark II. It's what we call a condenser mic, a professional audio mic basically. And a lot of the processing actually happens within the microphone itself. So you can hear the audio quality which is coming out now with this video. But that's really all you need is a decent microphone. Then it's just a matter of finding some editing software. And once you've recorded the audio, edit out all of the ums and ahs and gaps and mistakes and things like that, and there you have it, you've got an audiobook. Now, the downside is if somebody's written a really thick book, it could take several hours or even a couple of days to narrate an entire audiobook, but there is relatively good passive income to be made from it. So with acx.com, for example, once the audiobook is recorded and live, you've got a couple of options in terms of monetization. So the first option is that the author pays you in full for you to record that, so you get a fixed fee for recording it. The second thing which you could do is do what we call a royalty split. So it's 50-50. So essentially you don't get paid anything up front, but then you take 50% of the royalties for recording that audiobook. So there's two different ways to make money from narrating audiobooks. But if you like speaking, if you like reading, then it could be a really great way for you to start to get some passive income residually coming in around your work. I know people who've gone out and recorded hundreds of audiobooks through ACX, and they make tens of thousands of dollars a month, because once the book goes live, it's then down to the author to go out and start marketing their book. So you don't have to do anything beyond that. There is the downside though, that you're taking a little bit of a risk, especially if you do a royalty split, as to whether that book's going to be popular or not, or if the author's going to be a bit lazy and not really do their marketing. But again, it's relatively cheap. You can get into it nice and quickly and get a few good reviews on ACX, and then away you go. We're getting through these thick and fast. I think we're up to number 10 now. So the next one is around selling stuff on Facebook Marketplace or Gumtree or any of these other reseller type outlets, eBay being one of them as well. There's a lot of stuff. We used to have a one in, one out policy in my house. So whenever my wife bought something and it came in through the front door, I'd be finding something in our garage and taking it out the back door and selling it on Facebook. Shush, she doesn't know that. She might do now if she actually watches this video. That would be slightly embarrassing. But there's a lot of money to be made through Facebook Marketplace. So first of all, go through your garage, go through your cupboards and see if there's some stuff that you're just not using that you could actually make some money out of. That's quite a quick win, but obviously you're going to run out of things fairly quickly. What I would then suggest is you can go into something which I call arbitrage. So that means finding products for free or cheap, maybe upcycling them a little bit and cleaning them and things like that, and then relisting them back onto the marketplace for more money than you actually got it for. I've got a couple of friends who do things like this, and at one point one of them was making as much as £2,000 to £3,000 per month alongside his job as a postman. So there is money to be made here. It is a bit of a grind because you've got to drive around quite a lot, picking up things and dropping off things, and obviously the work to clean them up. But there is money to be made there, and it can all be done around your typical sort of working day. So it could operate as a really nice side hustle if you just want a bit of extra money coming in and enjoy the process of recycling stuff so it doesn't go to landfill. Next up, you could set up a carpentry business doing basic DIY and maintenance for other people, or even putting shelves up or, furniture together from IKEA for other people. There's a big call for this in the various Facebook groups that I'm a member of. And if you've got some creativity and practical skills when it comes to kind of putting things together and making things and projects, then this would be a dream business. Again, you can do it around your traditional sort of working hours, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Do it at weekends for people in the evenings. And there's plenty of, I'm thinking like single people or elderly people out there who don't have that person around them who can do these jobs for them. And they want somebody who is trustworthy and reliable and friendly, who can show up, maybe have a little bit of a chat with whilst you're putting together a piece of furniture for them or fixing something, and earn a little bit of money whilst you're doing it. This is a really nice way of just giving something back to your community, I feel. And so there's more to it than necessarily just making a bit of extra cash, although that does help. And so it's really worthwhile considering, if you find yourself doing a lot of DIY at home, is that something you could also do for other people potentially. Next up, we've got life or career coaching. So there's a lot of people out there with plenty of experience in the working world, but you're coming maybe to a natural end of your career, whatever it might be. But you could be a fantastic mentor for people who are maybe just starting out in your career. And this is, again, is something which you can do outside of your existing work, or maybe it could be a retirement option for you if you're thinking about actually leaving your job. So many young people need guidance in this day and age. And yeah, we've got a ton of advice that we can find on things like YouTube and online, but I find that it's quite disorganized, and sometimes just having somebody with some experience to sit down and speak these things through is a really great way to be able to have those insights which you need to be able to make big leaps forward with your life or career. Hearing from somebody who's been there and got the t-shirt is incredibly valuable, and I'd certainly recommend it. Next up, if you've got any kind of language skills, unlike us Brits, we can pretty much only speak English. I don't know whether it's out of laziness or because English is so easy to speak that we struggle to speak any other language. But if you are multicultural and have international heritage, then put that to good use, because there are tons of translation related jobs available out there for websites, for eBooks, for all sorts of different things at the moment. And yeah, there is a point where probably AI might take over from that industry. However, AI doesn't do the best job from what I've seen in terms of translating documents. So it's much better if you can get naturally translated documents, especially from a business perspective. So there is still money to be made there, and proofreading documents as well. Still, you can make quite decent sort of income from that. And typically how those tend to be costed up is on a per thousand or per per 100-word basis or even on a per word basis in many examples. I've actually got a client at the moment who is German but speaks excellent English. She actually lives here in the UK, and she translates government-related documents for local councils into various different languages for their constituents. So there is money to be made there, and she also does the design side of things, laying them out from a technical design perspective too, whilst doing the translation at the same time. Again, this is something that you've obviously learned at some point during your education or your career, and it doesn't cost anything to do translation work, so there are no tools which you've necessarily got to buy. It might be that there's the odd subscription service which you've got to sign up to or subscribe to, but that's probably about it. And again, there's plenty of websites available where you can pick up translation gigs in all sorts of different guises. It's worthwhile just doing a bit of Googling and seeing if you can find one. The next business idea is in the fitness space. So if you've had some kind of a transformation, whether it be losing weight or getting prepared for a big event such as a cycling competition or high rocks or something like that, and you went through a process in order to get fit, you know, to that transformation from A to B, then there's a potential that you may not know exactly what it is now, but if there was a step-by-step process which you took to create that transformation for yourself, you could potentially get out there and start teaching other people to do it. It doesn't have to be physically in person necessarily or to become a personal trainer, but if you can lay out those steps and then teach that to somebody else, and it could be you do it in person, but it could be you put it into some kind of a PDF download that you sell, or a book maybe which you put up onto Amazon, or a mini course which you upload onto Udemy or something like that. And there are ways that you can then monetize those on the back end. And also people will typically tend to pay for things like accountability and tips, and to have somebody that they can call, just ask for help when they need somebody to intervene because maybe they're procrastinating or not doing the work which they know they need to do. So fitness is definitely something which you can start selling. I think if you start to have to go into any technical detail over it, it might be that you need some form of certification for that, which obviously does cost money. But aside from that, there are ways to also get clients and sell products relatively inexpensively in the fitness space. My next idea, if you're into technical stuff, engineering, computers and things like that, then you could get into doing customer support for the elderly, for example, if they're unsure about how to use their mobile phone or their laptop or their Mac, for example. You can be available to be able to help those people, give them tips, tricks and advice, go around and teach them how to use software or to set up documents and print things out as well, and maybe fill out forms online. The other side of it as well is doing some kind of repair work, so that could be on either computers or mobile devices, iPads and things like that, also PCs, laptops, and anything which is sort of technical. You could, and if you're of that technical sort of mindset, then you should be able to get in there and help people. Probably in that regard, all you need is maybe a small set of decent screwdrivers and a few other tools to be able to make those repairs and to know where to buy the bits and pieces from. But tech support and technical repair is definitely a really fantastic way to make a bit of extra money as a side hustle. Next up, just fixing general household electrical items. And technically here, there's a caveat to this, that consider safety. That's really, really important. You don't want to be going around fixing washing machines or tumble dryers that then end up exploding into a ball of flames and burning a house down. So obviously do it within your own technical know-how and knowledge. Only be sure that you fix stuff that you know how to fix it and that it's not going to create some kind of safety issue. But it could be things like cameras or small electrical devices that there's no danger to them if you do need to fix them. Changing fuses, for example, and just small things. That could be a way to make some extra money. Probably not a huge amount of money in it, but if you're known in your local area for helping with those sorts of things, then people will start to refer you. And again, in Facebook groups, people will be asking for that sort of help and support. Next up, you could get into something like selling eBooks on Amazon. This is quite a tricky one because you do need the knowledge base, but again, with ChatGPT and the various AI tools out there, Book Magic being one of those, there are some really fantastic ways that you can create really compelling pieces of writing using AI tools quite quickly, and then be able to edit them and put them onto things like Amazon's Kindle Direct publishing platform, or sell them on other websites where, like Gumroad, for example, where you can sell digital products. I'm kind of not a fan of just buying white labeled products that you then repackage up and sell on. I do feel that if you're going to put a digital product out there into the ether, that you should have some element of knowledge or expertise within the area that you're writing about. Otherwise, I just don't think it's particularly ethical or moral to be putting stuff up there that is just, for the sake of making some extra money. But again, creating things like ebooks tends to just take a bit of time time to go through that, and you might just need to spend $20 a month on a ChatGPT subscription, and maybe 1 or 2 extra tools, like I said, like Book Magic to help with the planning out process of writing a book, maybe a cover designer or something like that, which you can get access to on Fiverr.com. But books are a really great way that once you've gone through the hard work of designing and writing the book and publishing it, it can form a relatively passive income. There is some marketing to do around ebooks and digital products and things like that. But with my books now, the audiobook and the digital versions of the book, and even the printed version of the book, I do make several £100s a month, which is, you know, anywhere between £200 and £500 a month. Typically, it depends on what my marketing's been like that month, but it is relatively passive. After I spent 8 to 12 months writing those books and published them, very little else to do after that. Bit of promotion, get some reviews and things like that, but it's relatively inexpensive and effortless to make that happen. So it is a nice form of passive income, but let's be fair, it's not going to get you rich. It's probably never going to really be a full-time gig, but it's something which you can easily do part-time in your spare time as a side hustle. The next one is a bit left field. It could be doing something like becoming a local tour guide or giving experiences in the local area. I know people who are very avid cyclists, for example, and one of the things which they do is they do guided tours around the Cotswolds of other cyclists who've come into the area and want somebody who knows the area to plan routes and then take them around, show them the local cafes where they can get coffee and cake during the breaks and things like that. And they get paid for the privilege of doing that. Some of them have even upskilled and become specialist cycling trainers, so that as they go around doing the tours, they can also give people tips and tricks on how to cycle faster and further on their bikes, and obviously doing things like bike fit and whatnot as well. So you can bundle extra things in, but typically the courses for doing anything in the cycling space tend to be quite expensive, between £500 and £1,000. So they do kind of fall outside of the remit of the £200, which I said. And cycling in itself is a very expensive hobby, so maybe that's not the best example. But you could do walking guides, for example, as something around in our local area called the Cotswold Way, which is a 150-mile trail which you can walk, and it winds across the Cotswolds, and actually you need to have a little bit of local knowledge to find your way across those walks. And actually you need to have a little bit of local knowledge to find your way through those hiking trails. So doing some kind of tour guiding and even helping people to find things like Airbnbs or camping spots and various places to stop en route. And people will pay for those, being sort of a local tour guide. It's really worthwhile looking into. And again, how do you market that? Well, you find Facebook groups, for example, or communities where people are going online and looking for amazing places to walk in the Cotswolds. And you kind of put your hand up and say, hey, I live there. Actually, I give guided tours, guided walks, you know, for a small fee. That's something, again, you can do evenings, you know, during the summer or weekends, and without it affecting your work. And if you're into walking or the local area or local history or something like that, then that's combining your passion and your hobby with actually making a little bit of money on the side, which I think is a fantastic thing to do. The next one is doing something like Deliveroo or JustEat or something like that. So become a delivery driver on a bike, picking up food and taking it to local houses in the community for a small fee. I don't know how much money you can make on that. There's tons of videos on YouTube where people are sort of spend a day with me on my bike doing Deliveroo. But, you know, again, it's something which you can just pick up and put down as you see fit. If you need a bit of extra money in the run up to Christmas or a special occasion, we'll go out and spend your weekends delivering some food and make a bit of money on the side. Seems relatively harmless. Obviously, you've got to have some kind of transport, so a bike or a cheap car or something like that. But if you've already got those, it's a great way to monetize what you're doing. Make sure you get verified on the platforms, and then away you go. I know there are obviously some dangers to it, as people stealing bikes and things like that if you're doing it in London and some of the big cities, but provided you're careful, again, there's some great money to be had there. I know some people who do it, you know, religiously each and every weekend, and they're making a few £100s a day for the extra days which they're spending doing it. So it can also be quite lucrative, and hey, well, you get fit at the same time, which can't be a bad thing. The next one is around upcycling furniture. I had a friend of mine who was making nearly £5,000 a month just buying pieces or getting pieces of furniture for free on things like Gumtree and Facebook Marketplace, you know, which is relatively inexpensive. And then they would spend the weekend sanding them down, painting them up, putting nice new handles on them, and various things like that. Take some nice photos and then relist it back on the same marketplace. And they were making a significant amount of money. It did get to a point though where, you know, they ended up having to buy a van in order to be able to do the deliveries of the furniture, because not everybody's able to transport large pieces of furniture. And they even at one point bought a warehouse. I don't actually know if they're still doing it or not, but it was earning them a pretty decent living. And in fact, she went full time with it in the end with her sister. So again, there's great money to be made if you're a little bit creative and have an eye for design or something like that. You know, and there's plenty of furniture being listed on things like Gumtree and Facebook Marketplace and eBay all of the time. You just got to have a bit of nous about you to understand how to make it more valuable and how to then get out there and sell it, and a place to store it as well, obviously. I also know somebody locally who's making birdhouses, and they're doing this very successfully. The nice thing is that they can spend a weekend making the birdhouses almost as a production factory line. So they're all based on templates. They cut the sides, cut the front, cut the hole in the front of it. They, nail and screw these things together. And then what they actually do is they run an honesty box where they've got the birdhouses that they've made over the weekend. They then leave them on their driveway. Thankfully, it's in a nice area where they're not going to necessarily get stolen or vandalized or anything like that. And they do it on a pay-as-you-please basis. Now, the reason this person is able to do that is because they get things like pallet wood and then recycle that into the bird boxes. And, they're relatively simple and straightforward to make. And depending on how busy you are, you can make one or you can make 10. It doesn't really matter. And then in terms of sales, it's passive because they're kind of sat there, and then people pay anywhere between £10 and £50 typically for these birdhouses, or bird boxes as we say here in England. Somebody's even paid as much as £100 for one that was particularly nice, and some people will even come along and buy multiple ones of them. You can also list those on things like Facebook Marketplace and eBay and Gumtree, so there's multiple different channels to be able to sell them. And it could even be that if there's a local design or furniture sort of warehouse or does household items and goods, could you strike up a partnership where you're going to send them 5 to 10 each week, and then they show them in the shop and you get a cut of the profits from that. So simple products like that are relatively inexpensive or cheap to make, that you can kind of make a few, make some money, use the money, reinvest it, and then make some more, is a really great way to start to build up a kitty, for your rainy day fund on a part-time basis. We're coming towards the end of this. I think I've got 5 more business ideas to go through. Well done if you've kind of sat through all of this. If you're getting excited and motivated and you actually want to speak to somebody about one of these business ideas, I'm your guy. Do reach out to me, share me your idea and talk to me about how you can get this started up. You can buy one of my books, Online Business Startup, which will teach you about how to build a business in the online environment and then start to market your products or services. Or one of my favorite books of all time, not for me, but for the people reading it, that's got nearly 900 reviews, is my book, Take Your Shot. And I'm gifting a free signed copy to everybody who's watching this video. You've just got to go to fearless.biz/TYS for Take Your Shot. And I will post you a free signed copy of that book, physical copy, no matter where you are in the world. There is an option to pay for postage, but even if you don't pay for postage and still put your address in, I will still send the book to you, because I believe that good quality business advice should be available for free, and my book is one way that I like to be able to give back to people. And yeah, I do get some clients, but that's not necessarily what it's all about. This is about empowering you as a business owner to at least get started and make some more money. Next up, you could do something like podcast production. If you find yourself going on your dog walks or jumping into the car or plugging in your AirPods at various moments and listening to podcasts, then it might be that actually you want to create a side hustle in the podcasting space. There's lots of people who've got podcasts. I believe there's somewhere approaching 1 million podcasts now in the world, and people are starting up podcasts all the time. I have my own podcast. I have somebody who edits it for me. So if you get into some form of podcast production, whether that be helping people to record the podcast, or maybe just editing them once they've had a chance to record them, or promoting them, it's a really still a very growing, a big and growing industry that you can get into and do one part of it particularly well. Another area around podcast production is helping guests to get onto podcasts. So I call it a podcast concierge service. So if you're organized, you can almost do it as a virtual assistant type role for anybody in the world. I'd recommend niching. So I would niche into like coaching businesses or consulting business owners or freelancers. So people, in a specific niche who are looking to grow their podcast. But you can do editing, you can do production, you can do filming, you can do concierge services, you can do podcast marketing. So there's lots of different things just within podcasting which you can help people with. And again, if it's based around your passion, you don't actually even need to spend a huge amount of money. There's a lot of podcast editing software and video editing software that you can get for free. There are podcast tools, again, that are free that you can use to promote podcasts. You could even turn podcast episodes, into blogs through transcribing it and then using some AI tools to help people repurpose their content. Another business idea, if you have a young family, this might be something which you want to explore. There are a few people doing this already, but crafting kits for kids, and there are several people selling these as subscription-based services. So again, if you find something that your kids love, that you think, actually, I could package this up and send this out to people, and you can design other products around it. Having a subscription-based business is awesome because it means that you get that monthly recurring revenue coming in, month out, which is great because it gives you the financial security which you need and probably want for your young family. You can also do the packages, design the products around your family so that when your kids are having a nap, for example, you could do some, boxing up some of the and making some of the packages up, which you're going to send out to people, sticking postage labels onto it, and when the kid wakes up or you've got to pick one up from school, just pop down to the local post office and ship these products. So there's an awful lot of flexibility around doing subscription-based services. And if it's, again, something which you're passionate about, kid-related especially, the thing is, parents spend a heck of a lot of money on their kids, especially when it comes to entertaining their kids and keeping them quiet. So doing some kind of crafty-based kit is going to be fantastic if it's something which you can ship out and post, or find a local retailer that you can that is happy to stock your products. One of my favorites actually is document digitization. We live in this incredibly digital world, but there are some baby boomers out there and ex-gen people who still have a lot of very physical related stuff that needs digitizing. So it could be VHS videos or even Betamax that needs to be put into MP4 format that then can be played on their laptop or phone or something like that. It could be old photographs which people need scanning in, or even slides. I found some of my dad's old 35mm slides the other day, and I've still got a machine which I put them in one by one and then digitize those photos. It was great because it was really nostalgic. It was lovely to be able to reflect on those photos. And my mum's got a whole heap of photographs that at some point I'd probably like to digitize when I get my hands on them. But I might not have the time to be able to do that, but if I could drop them off to somebody who is happy to sit there and scan those photos and retouch them and, make them look really good, if you're into photography and things like that, that could be a really fantastic way to make a bit of extra money on the side. And again, you can take it on a project by project basis, so you don't have to necessarily overwhelm yourself and just do a project at a time. And there is good money to be made in that. Just something simple that can be done over and over again on a repetitive basis that doesn't take too much sort of intellectual stimulation is actually really good, because if you've got a job that keeps you busy during the week, you don't want to be doing something which is necessarily tiring and exhausting at the end of the day. So being out doing gardens and washing cars and things like that could be quite tiring, and then you might be too tired to go back to work on a Monday, whereas just sat at home, have your supper, go and scan a few documents in is quite a nice way to do something just to kind of wind down in the evening, because it's just one of those dull and repetitive tasks, but actually it's great value for somebody like myself. The next one, again, if you've got a keen eye for something like photography or video, whether it be on your mobile device or on a DSLR like I'm using here, helping to other people with taking photographs and video for, it could be weddings which they need to shoot. I've done a couple of friends' weddings before. I'm not great. I don't really consider myself to be a videographer, but they were happy just to have the footage there as a nice memento of their day. And it came out all right, actually. I was quite happy with the footage at the end of the day. So getting into something like that could be quite fun. You could actually turn it into a paid gig as well. Doing people's portraits. It could be taking photos of their pets. I know some really amazing dog photographers out there, kind of throw treats at the dog and I get really crazy shots of the dogs and things like that. So photography, videography is another great way to make a side hustle out of doing something which you love. Again, you probably have to do a little bit of business networking, and if it's something which you don't really have the equipment for, camera gear can get very expensive very quickly. But again, I know people who have photography businesses which they're just using their mobile phone, which pretty much everybody has got, just to get started. And then when you've made a little bit of money from it, you can then reinvest some of that money back into getting some professional camera gear. Okay, my penultimate business idea is actually a meal prep service. So again, it's picking up on a passion. Do you get a theme here? Hopefully you've got a theme from these different ideas. So if you're into cooking and baking and things like that, but cooking especially, there's lots of very busy people out there, busy working parents, for example, who don't have time to create wholesome, nutritious meals necessarily for them and their families. So this could be something, again, which you do during your spare time. Drop your kids off at school, come back and do some meal prep for your neighbours. Again, I know businesses that have started out as just cottage industries, just from their kitchen, that have grown into these big multi-million pound industries where they're doing meal prep for tens of thousands of people. Also, there's a repeat purchase side of that business where you can almost set up a subscription model for doing X number of meals per week and then shipping them out to the people each week. There are even some businesses where they don't even do the meal prep. They just send you the ingredients and then you have to cook it yourself. Again, it just takes the thought process out of it for busy people. But doing something in the meal prep, cooking, cooking, food space is a really great way, especially if it's one of your passions, to be able to make an extra few quid as a side hustle income. And then my final one is writing and blogging. So there's lots of people out there, business owners especially, who know that they need to be putting content out online so that it can be consumed by, well, probably more so AI these days, but also Google and the various other search engines in order to promote their business. And of course on social media, you can of course monetize blogs. I've done it very successfully to the tune of about £6,000 to £8,000 a month. So plenty of other people can do, but a lot of people don't have the time to sit down and write good quality content. So if you enjoy writing and you have a specific topic which you love writing about, and you can find a business owner that might need a bit of support with that, then get out there and start helping them to write some content. And typically you can get paid on a per article or per 1,000 word or per 100 word basis. And it can be incredibly lucrative, especially if you're talented at writing. You could even develop that. So if you've got a combination of writing and marketing, then getting out and doing emails for people who need to market their business. So writing email sequences, writing advertising copy, and more advanced forms of marketing copy is an incredibly lucrative way of doing things. I know people who do email marketing campaigns and they charge what we call a royalty. So they charge a percentage commission based on sales, and they are making tens of thousands of pounds a month for writing 5 to 10 emails for businesses, especially in the e-commerce space where there's like repeat purchase. So there is money to be made, but it might start out that you just do a bit of blogging for somebody else, not for yourself, as a way of making an extra few quid each, using your spare time in the evenings and weekends. Right, there's all my business ideas. Like I said, get out there and just get started. All of the ideas which I've shared with you are very inexpensive ways of making a bit more money. I would love it if one of these resonated with you. Do drop it in the comments below. What was the idea which you're kind of going to give it a go? Let me know if you need some tips or advice on how to actually launch and grow that business. Is there a way that you can make more money from it? How do you get out there and actually market it? I'd love to be able to help you. So just let me know in the comments below what business idea it is that you're going to start. And if you need any help, just drop the question in the comments as well.